Welcome to Live Without Limits. Your breakthrough starts here. I'm your host, Davida Shensky, and today I want to talk about something that affects almost everything we try to accomplish in life. We're going to talk about discipline and organization, but I don't want to talk about discipline as a punishment or an organization as having a perfectly clean desk and color-coded calendar. I want to talk about the discipline and organization that affect your mindset, confidence, personal development, productivity, and ability to accomplish your goals, because you can have all of the positive thoughts in the world. You can listen to motivational speakers. You can read personal development books. You can attend seminars. You can write down your goals. You can create a vision board. You can tell yourself, this is going to be my year. But eventually, you have to actually do something. And then you have to do it again and again. That's where discipline comes into the picture. Organization helps you decide what needs to be done. Discipline helps you actually do it. And mindset determines whether you believe the effect is worth making. When these three things begin working together, that's when personal development starts producing the changes in your life. So today, I want you to think about one question. What could change your life if you became just a little more disciplined and organized? Not perfect, just better than you are today. So let's talk about it. Have you ever worked up feeling completely motivated? And this is where motivation gets too much credit. You tell yourself, today's the day. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to organize my office. I'm going to work on my business. I'm going to start writing that book. I'm going to eat healthier, but I'm going to finally tackle that project that I've been putting off. You're excited. You have energy. Maybe you even make a list. Then something happens. Life. The phone rings. The email arrives. Something unexpected happens. You don't sleep well. You get frustrated. Suddenly, all that motivation you had yesterday seems to have disappeared. And this is where many people make a mistake. They think, maybe I just need more motivation. But motivation isn't designed to carry you through everything. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions change. Think about exercise. If you only exercise when you feel like exercising, how often are you going to do it? If you only work out your business when you feel inspired, how consistently are you going to build that business? If you save money when you feel like saving money, what happens when you feel like spending it instead? That's why discipline matters. Motivation says, I feel like doing this. Discipline says, I decided to do this. There's an enormous difference. And here's the question I want you to think about. Where in your life are you working for motivation when what you really need is discipline? Maybe you've been saying, I need to get motivated to start. What if you didn't? What if you simply started? Okay, think about it. Discipline is what helps you get motivated. I can tell you this much. I grew up with a disability at a time when there were few opportunities and no one was out there telling me that I needed to exercise. But I learned just about for many, let's back up and say it this way. For many years, if you thought about going to exercise, it was always with free weights. And because I don't have use of my right hand, I can't use free weights. But the moment they started opening up these health clubs where they had the machines that you can put the weight on that you need, then I found a way that I could go and exercise. And yes, there's been times that I thought, oh, I don't want to get up. But I knew I had transportation coming and I had to be ready. And it was always the getting ready that was the hardest part and the going. But once I got there, and even before I got to the point where I knew I had transportation ready, when I was much younger, all I had to do was just put the clothes on, eat something, walk out the door, and walk right to the gym. Get done, come home, start my work, do the things that I needed to do for my business. But I had the discipline to do it because I knew that was the difference between me being mobile and me building up strength and balance. Now it has to do with the fact that as I've aged, I have to exercise even more so to keep up that balance, to keep up that strength. And understanding that is why we have to understand exactly where we are and how we can put ourselves into that mode of thinking about exercise and the importance of exercise in our lives today. Understanding that, understanding exactly how you exercise, how you do things, can help you understand how to put your discipline into effect. Now, let's talk about how discipline is keeping promises to yourself. I want to change the way we think about discipline. For many people, discipline sounds negative. It sounds restrictive. It sounds like someone telling you what you can't do. But I think there's another way of looking at it. Discipline is keeping promises to yourself. Think about how important trust is in relationships. If someone constantly tells you there's going to be something and they never do it, eventually you stop believing them. Now, think about your relationship with yourself. How many times have you said, I'm starting Monday, I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to get organized, I'm going to work on my goal, I'm going to finish that project, and then you don't. Eventually, your mind notices the pattern. You start creating a goal, and there's a little voice somewhere in the background saying, here we go again. That's why discipline is such a powerful connection to confidence. Confidence isn't simply telling yourself, I can do it. Confidence also comes from creating evidence that you can trust yourself. Suppose you decide every morning this week, I'm going to spend 20 minutes working on something important to me. Monday, you do it. Tuesday, you do it. Wednesday, you're tired and you don't feel like doing it. But you do it anyway. Something important just happened. You proved something to yourself. You proved that your actions don't have to be controlled by your mood. That personal growth, and sometimes the biggest breakthrough aren't dramatic. Nobody applauds. Nobody gives you the award. Nobody even knows what you did. But you know. You know you followed through. And every time you follow through, you're strengthening your relationship with yourself. Do you understand how discipline gets you to that mode of saying? It's what it is you're creating a habit. And they often say it takes 21 days to create a habit. But what you've just done really is that habit is how you have created and disciplined yourself. I have exercised for over 40 years consistently and started exercising actually when I was in my early 30s because that's when they really started to open up these health clubs with the machines in them. And I remember I would go and I would work out on the machines and then I would take an aerobics class. And what that aerobics class did was it helped me build up my concentration on following the instructor on doing what she was doing. And yes, I was probably the most fit at that point in my life. Now, today, I still exercise, and I still do basically the same exercise that I did at that time. And when I don't, I compensate by walking. But for me, it's also that I had to remind myself that even though I'm exercising, I'm getting older. I don't have the same kind of balance that I had previously, and I live alone, and I have to worry about whether or not I fall. That it was important for me to understand that meant putting back on the brace to support my foot so that when I walk, I will consistently walk heel, toe, and rather than dragging my foot, and also that meant putting a brace on my hand to support it so I get better mobility. And recognizing that is what helped me discipline myself to the point of knowing that also I write things down on what I plan to do the next day so that I can make sure that all of those things actually get done. Recognizing where you are at your point, at your age, and what you're capable of. And remember, exercise is one thing that keeps you mobile. If you look at many of the generation before the baby boomers, they did a lot of walking, but they really did not work on strengthening their muscles. And many of them, as they aged, ended up in wheelchairs and in walkers simply because their bodies started to give out. So understanding what you need to start doing at a young age and doing it so that as you age, you've disciplined yourself to the point of being able to do these things on a consistent basis. Now, let's talk about organization and how it creates the mental freedom. Now, have you ever had so many things going through your mind that you couldn't figure out what to do first? You have emails to answer, calls to make, bills to pay, appointments to schedule, projects to finish, things you need to do around the house, personal goals, business goals, family responsibilities. And while you're doing one thing, you're thinking about five other things. That's mentally exhausting. And here's what's interesting. Sometimes people think they're lacking discipline when they actually lack clarity. You can't effectively execute a plan you haven't created. That's why organization matters. Organization removes some of the decisions that your brain has to make throughout the day. Instead of waking up and asking yourself, what should I do today? You already know. Instead of sitting down at your desk and thinking, where do I begin? You've already decided. Here's something simple you can try. I call it the daily three. Before you go to bed, identify the three most important things you need to accomplish tomorrow. You can certainly have other tasks, but these three become your priority. Then ask, which one matters most? Start there. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing exactly what your three priorities are. That's a completely different feeling from waking up with 25 responsibilities swirling around inside your head. Organization doesn't restrict you. Organization gives you freedom. It frees your mind from having to remember and prioritize everything at the same time. It frees you up to choose what's the most important thing you have to do the first thing in the morning. I know when I get up in the morning and they're picking me up at a specific time and I have to be ready, I know the best thing to do is think about it in terms of getting dressed, making sure everything is cooking while I'm getting dressed. Then, after I finish getting dressed, takes finish up the warm everything that I've cooked, then eat it, then pull everything together, watch the time, and know exactly what time to be outside for them to pick me up and be ready. And it's all in how you recognize the things that you need to do and how to do them in a way to make sure that you have yourself a plan. And organization just means that everything is laid out in such a way that you can make sure you have all the tools available to you to make it all work effectively. Now, let's look at the hidden connection between clutter and mindset. And this is a very big issue. And yes, this is the information age, and we have so much thrown at us. We have to go through and think about what is important and what can just be put aside and what we really truly need to concentrate. And you hear a lot about politics throughout the years, but it's most important to me to listen to it when an election time is coming up and not get totally involved with it, that it takes away from me doing what's most important for me in my mind and how I'm going to look at things. And this is why you have to look at clutter and say what's important that you need to look at and what's not. What is just noise? Now, I am not only talking about the pile of paper sitting on your desk. There's physical clutter. There's digital clutter. And there's mental clutter. Maybe you have 50 browser tabs open. Your phone is constantly sending notifications. Emails keep popping up. You're checking social media. You're answering messages. You're trying to work. And then you say, I can't concentrate. Well, of course you can't. Your brain is being asked to change direction every few seconds. Organization isn't simply about being neat. It's about protecting your attention. And your attention is one of the most valuable resources. Think about this question. What gets most of the attention every day? Then ask, does this match what you say is important to you? That's an uncomfortable question sometimes. We say our business is important, but we spend hours scrolling through social media. We say our health is important, but we never schedule time to take care of ourselves. We say writing that book is important, but everything else gets scheduled first. Your calendar often reveals your priorities more accurately than your intentions do. So instead of asking, do I have enough time? Try asking, am I organizing my time around what matters most? Think about it. The best way to do it is in managing your time is think about it in time management, because that's a very different question. And the best way of handling things like that is this. Look at your calendar. Get a day timer, something where you can look at the time and schedule your meetings. And in between scheduling your meetings, schedule and make sure you have time for yourself. Now, why do we procrastinate? Let's talk about procrastination, because that is the biggest thing that interferes with time management. Most of us have experienced it. You know, something needs to be done. You know, you'll feel better when it's finished, but somehow you keep finding other things to do. Suddenly cleaning the kitchen seems incredibly important, or checking email becomes urgent, or you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow when I have more time. Why do we do that? Sometimes we're overwhelmed. Sometimes we're afraid we'll fail. Sometimes we don't know where to begin. Sometimes the task feels too large. And sometimes we're trying to make something perfect before we've even started. Here's where organization becomes powerful. Instead of saying, I need to write a book, ask, what's the first step that I need to take? Maybe the first step is creating the title, then the chapter outline, then writing the introduction, then writing chapter 1. Suddenly, you're not writing a book, you're writing one page. That's manageable. Suppose we want to start a business. Start a business is enormous. Instead, research the market, identify the customer, determine the problem you're solving, create the offer, set the pricing, build your marketing strategy, talk to the potential customer. Now you have individual steps. The discipline says, which one am I doing today? That's how goals become accomplished. Not through one giant leap, through a series of smaller actions. And this is why what we say is this. When you set a goal, You need to break it down into smaller activities so that as you complete each activity, what is happening? You're looking at it this way. And as you accomplish each smaller activity and goal, that's a success. That's a win. That's helping you get where you want to go. And there's a story that I heard that I often retell, and that's how a farmer took his grandson out to plant with him, and the grandson looked at the whole rows and he said, I can't do that. And the grandfather said to him, turn around and put your back to it. Plant each little thing, and then as you move forward, what are you doing? You're actually seeing everything you've done as opposed to what you still have to do. Now, let's stop trying to change everything at once. And personal development can sometimes work against us if we're not careful. You read a book or attend a seminar, and suddenly you're going to change your entire life tomorrow. You're getting up at 5 o'clock, exercising for an hour, meditating, reading 30 pages, starting a business, writing a book, drinking more water, eating healthier, organizing the house, and learning a new skill, all before breakfast. And what happens? You might do it for 2 days, then you're exhausted, then you miss one day. And because you missed one day, you decide you failed. You haven't failed. You simply created a system that was too difficult to maintain. Personal development is about seeing how you can change overnight. It's about creating changes that you sustain. When want to start reading, start with 5 pages. Start to exercise. Start with 10 minutes. Want to write? Start with 200 words. Want to get organized? Spend 10 minutes every evening preparing for tomorrow. Small actions don't look impressive, but small actions repeated consistently create enormous results. Think about what happens when you improve something just a little bit every week. After a month, you're better. After 6 months, you're noticing better. After a year, you may be a completely different person in that area. That's the power of consistency. Organize around your energy, not someone else's life. Here's another mistake we make. We look at how successful people organize their day and assume we have to copy them. Someone says, I wake up at 4:30 every morning, and suddenly everyone thinks waking up at 4:30 is the secret to success. It's not. If you're productive at 4:30 in the morning, wonderful. If you're useless at 4:30 in the morning, why are you trying to build your life around someone else's routine? Personal development requires self-awareness. Ask, when do I have the most energy? When am I most creative? When can I concentrate best? Then organize important work around these periods whenever possible. If you're most focused in the morning, don't spend your best mental energy checking email. Use this time for something important. If you're more creative in the afternoon, protect some of that time. Organization isn't about creating the perfect schedule. It's about creating a schedule that helps you perform your best. What we need to know and to recognize is when is our energy at its highest. Discipline when things don't go as planned. Now, here's the real test. What happens when life interrupts your beautifully organized schedule? Because it will. An appointment runs late, technology stops working, someone needs your attention, you're tired, something unexpected happens. This is where many people fall into an all or nothing thinking. I missed my routine today, so I'll start again Monday. Why Monday? Why not start again with the next decision? Discipline isn't never getting off track. Discipline is learning how quickly you can get back on track. That's important distinction. You miss one workout, fine. Do the next one. You didn't work out on your goal today. Schedule it for tomorrow. You had an unproductive morning. You still have the afternoon. Don't turn one bad decision into a bad week. And don't turn one difficult week into abandoning your goal. Personal development isn't about perfection. It's about recovery. Building your personal discipline section. Now, let's make this practical. Here's a simple system that you can begin using. First, identify one meaningful goal. Second, break that goal into smaller actions. Third, schedule these actions. Fourth, remove distinctions when you're working on them. Fifth, track whether you're following through. And six, review what's working. Notice what's missing. Waiting for motivation. You don't need to wait. You have a system. Suppose your goal is to create a podcast. You plan might look like this. Monday, research the topic. Tuesday, create the outline. Wednesday, write talking points. Thursday, record. Friday, edit and publish. You've transformed I want to create a podcast into here's what I'm going to doing Monday. That's organization. Then Monday comes and you don't feel like researching, but you do it anyway. That's discipline. And after several weeks, you've published multiple episodes. That's progress. And when you look back and realize what you've accomplished, something else grows. Confidence. Now, let's look at it this way. I want to leave you with this thought. You can't necessarily need another motivational speech. You don't need to wait until Monday. You don't need January 1st. You don't need the perfect planner. You don't need the perfect morning routine. And you certainly don't need to become somebody else. You need to decide what matters, organize your actions around it, and develop enough discipline to keep showing up. Some days you'll feel motivated. Some days you won't. Some days you'll accomplish everything on your list. Other days life will completely change your plans. That's okay. The question is, was I perfect today? And no one is perfect. The question is, am I still moving forward? Remember, motivation gets you excited. Mindset helps you believe it's possible. Organization gives you direction. Discipline keeps you moving. Consistency creates results. And every time you follow through on a commitment you made to yourself, you're doing more than completing a task. You're becoming someone who trusts yourself to follow through. The confidence begins affecting other areas of your life. You start taking on bigger goals. You become willing to try things that you've been putting off. You become less dependent on whether you're in the mood. And eventually, you realize something very powerful. You don't have to wait until you feel ready to move forward. Sometimes moving forward is what makes you feel ready. So here's my challenge to you. Before you move on with whatever you're doing next, identify one thing that you're putting off. Write it down. Break it into one small action. Put that action on the calendar. And when the time comes, do it. Not because you feel motivated. Do it because you made a commitment to yourself. Then tomorrow, do it again, because success isn't created with one extraordinary moment. It's built through ordinary decisions that you make every single day. So I'm Davida Shensky. You've been listening to Live Without Limits. And remember, you don't have to change everything today. You don't have to take the next step. Keep growing, keep believing, keep moving forward, and most importantly, keep living without limits.